like 45 minutes of your body resting in this state is the physiological equivalent of 4 to 5 hours of rest. So it's incredible for recovery and gives you wake up feeling like $1,000,000. And what's happening is the sound waves from the crystal singing bowls are actually going through your body and pushing out different lower frequencies and vibrations and bringing you into more resonance with the higher vibrations. Higher vibrations typically win in a competition for, like, most people get pulled into it. Unless we have really shitty energy hygiene, then we can be really susceptible to being pulled into other people's bad vibes. It's like the ones that are amplified the most are going to win. So that's why in a sound bath, you're getting these big waves of amplified sound that are moving through. And I literally call it an energetic massage, because that's what's happening. Yeah. You're flushing toxins, you're flushing emotions, all sorts of stuff out of your system. It's important to stay hydrated before and afterwards. And it's like therapy for your energetic body that you don't have to talk about. It's winning.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. And whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode is a coach, an author. She is the host of the Make One Day Happen podcast. She helps teams and people reimagine their futures through sustainable, cognitive, and somatic practices and tools. She blends systems, science, spirituality, and a little bit of swearing. So please, as she leads us into this episode, welcome my friend to the Elev8 Podcast, Sheena Jean.
All right. Well, first off, this is what I call just breathing ground, and just allows us to kind of clear the energy of where we were before this, where we're headed after this, and just really drop into the present moment together. So first and foremost, you got to shake it off. So just get some shakes going, flop your wrists around, maybe do some spinal twists. If you want to like stand up and like wiggle some hips, work it out just a little bit, that's totally acceptable. And once you feel sufficiently shooketh, you start to find a seat, feet flat on the floor, spine nice and tall. Bring your right hand to your belly, left hand to your heart. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes, feel safe to do so, go ahead and do that, and start to come to the bottom of your breath, releasing all the air from your lungs, finding the bottom of the exhale, and then start to inhale through the nose, filling up your belly first. So feeling your right hand rise, feeling the left hand start to rise as you pull some air up into your lungs. Drop the shoulders away from the ears, and then exhale audibly through the mouth. Yeah, really good. Let's do that again. So inhaling into the belly, into the chest, pausing at the top, exhale, sigh to release. Awesome. One more time. Big breath in, into the belly, into the lungs. Pause a little bit longer at the top as you sigh. Exhale a little bit louder. And then from here, we'll move into a Samavriti box breath, a few rounds of this. So inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold full at the top for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through the nose, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause, empty at the bottom, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take 2 more rounds at your own pace and your own count. At the end of that second round, just pause and notice where you're at, what's happening in your mind. If there's any body sensations alive for you. And then listen for a word of intention, something to hold the energy you'd like to embody in this podcast together. And once you got that, go ahead and come on back.
Right. I'm ready to go.
Giddy up.
Appreciate that. That was good.
What was your
Um,
word?
listen
Ooh,
has been kind of my vibration word a lot, I
I
guess.
love that.
Um,
If
so
only we had
yeah,
more people listening.
yeah. So maybe we'll get into that too. So,
Okay.
that's a different way to start the podcast because that might be just how we do it. But for those that listen to that exercise, welcome to the Elev8 Podcast. Sheena Jean. I was thinking about my guests that I've had, and there's only one other person that's been a guest that has known me as long as you, and that was my college football coach that came on the podcast. So
Oh, really?
he only had that by a couple years. So Sheena, for those that are listening, has known me for a long time when I was definitely probably more of a younger punk in my 20s. And so hopefully she won't talk too much about that, but it is
I'd be
amazing.
incriminating myself too if I did.
It is amazing to circle back in life with her and have her on this podcast. And I guess to start out, just to give our listeners a little idea of, tell them about the work that you do and what led you on your journey to do that work.
Loaded question. Is this, am I allowed to swear or no? We have kids.
Yes, I'm pretty let it be yourself. This is a be yourself place.
Okay, great, great. I love those kind of places and spaces. Thank you for creating that. Well, hey, y'all. My name is Sheena Jean. I am the founder of Make One Day Happen, and it's a company that supports founders, leaders, executives, high performers, and that people who give a fuck about their development, about their teams, and about their company culture. And I help people bring woo to work and into some of the unexpected places. I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of woo-woo stuff, and we make it accessible and relatable because what I know for facts is that to have elevated performance in life, you got to tap into a little bit of the woo. And for a long time, it's been really gate kept or feels like it's not important or not relevant. And now we have just so much science and research that us Westerners need to prove things that have been honestly around for thousands and thousands of years in other cultures. And so I like to help bridge that gap. I use systems-based thinking. I use spiritualities, a little bit of swearing, and science to really kind of help people understand how to get into some practices that support their energy hygiene, their thought defense, and their elevated leadership. So we've got honestly a lot of overlap in just who we be and what we speak on and teach. So this is
Yeah.
this has been a conversation in the works for decades, which it's really exciting to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's so excited. Grateful to have you and grateful to be led through your breathing exercise to begin. Um,
Yeah.
you said one of the things I wanted to ask you about just in there, I think especially a lot of athletes, coaches, and listeners, and even myself, as we know, you talked about energy hygiene.
Yeah.
Can for maybe people that maybe that's a new term or what is that? Can you share with us a little bit about that and how we
Yeah.
can create some maintenance for it?
Absolutely. My mission is really to, well, my mission straight up in as my soul and being that I am in this lifetime and through my company is to create a ripple effect that changes the vibration of humanity's consciousness. It's dicey out there, if you will.
Yeah.
So basically what energy hygiene does is it helps people elevate their vibe. We all know about vibes. We use vibes on a really trendy basis now, like good vibes, bad vibes. There's really not as such a thing, I believe, as good or bad vibes, but there are higher and lower
Mm,
vibrations and frequencies, and we
yeah.
have an energetic body. You actually spoke about this. Laura spoke about this on that podcast episode. We have 5 different bodies. We all know the meat suit really well, like the
Yeah.
physical body that we walk around in and go to the gym for and brush its teeth and put on the deodorant, all the things, right? We have these hygiene practices for our physical body, and we actually have an energetic body. We have a thought body, we have a wisdom body, and we have a spirit body as well.
Mm,
In yoga, they're called the koshas. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. And if someone's listening and wants to, definitely check out the koshas. And when we start to recognize that our energy is actually what's informing and expressing our physical body, like without the breath and energy or prana, Chi, there's so many different words for it in different cultures and languages. However, that life force energy that we have, without that, the body is done. Without the breath and our energy, our meat suit doesn't work. That's why we're always looking for that first breath when the baby comes out, our last breath that we take, like that's when we know we've transitioned over. So our energy body is really, really, really important. And our energy body is informed by the thought body. And our thoughts are what is really setting the actual tone, the vibration, the frequencies of the energy that is informing the rest of our body. And that those thoughts and that energy, we have trillions of cells, trillions, like 38 trillion. And so they're all listening on a subconscious level to what we're thinking about and then responding accordingly in a positive, negative manner. And so when we start to understand the energy body and the fact that we can start to take care of it, just like we have for our meat suit, we do our deodorant and we brush our teeth and we do our hair and all of these things that are considered proper hygiene for our body. There are things that we need to be doing for our energy so that you don't have stinky vibes. And like we all know what it's like when someone walks into a room with stinky vibes, like whether
Yeah.
that is our partner after a shitty day of work and they come home and you're like, oh man, I don't, I don't know how I want to be. Or coach walks into the locker room and you're like, oh shit, this is not going to be good. Right. Like there are just definitive times when we know when someone else has bad vibes without even having to say anything. And there's also the opposite. Like we also have all had that experience when someone comes into a room and you're just like magnetically drawn to that person and you lean in, you want to know more. They haven't even said anything yet, but like you can just feel their presence and their energy. And we say things like, oh, I just listened to this podcast that really resonated with me, right? There's something called resonance and dissonance that happens because as energy beings, we're always either in resonance or in dissonance with things. And that's where it's like, I don't vibe with that person. Well, it's because your frequencies and your energy does not match. And that's not a bad thing, right? And if we don't have good energy hygiene, we're really leaving ourselves open to getting sucked into other people's bad vibes. So having good energy hygiene gives us really good boundaries to be the one that's actually pulling people towards a higher frequency versus if we're conscious about our energy hygiene, we're going to get sucked into energetic fields, quite literally, of bad vibes that bring us down. That's why there's certain people that maybe you spend time with and you feel really drained afterwards. But then there's some people that you'll spend 3 hours with and it feels like it went by in 10 minutes and you just have all of this energy after spending time with them, right? It's like, so we are energetic beings and we all need to be taking care of our energy hygiene. There's two different ways that we do that, and it's cognitively and somatically. So there's two different types of practices that you have to put in reps for. So just like any game that you're going to go play, you got to practice to, so that way when you're in the game in real life, it's going to be supporting you. And cognitive means mind. So really putting in reps to increase your metacognition, your ability to think about your thoughts and understand how to detach and get into that flow state is an important part. However, we can't just think our way. It's not just mindset that is going to support our energy hygiene. So much is in the body. And that's what somatic means. So somatic practices are practices that have to do with your body. Things like cold plunging, just exercising, right? Like their breath work, different tools for different things are going to support, but there's a lot of energy and old emotions that get stuck and trapped in our bodies that create certain patterns. And so when we are trying to work at the subconscious, which is what's running everything for all of us, 95% of our thoughts, our behaviors are automated by our subconscious. And a lot of it's shit that got passed down from our parents and their parents and their parents. So I truly believe that we're in a generation of humanity that's designed to be here healing and transmuting a lot of energy and trauma that's been passed down the line for humanity. And we've got an incredible opportunity to do that. And it can be fun. It doesn't, that's why I like to take a little bit of a different approach to it. Healing and trauma and all these things out there, regulating your nervous system can be so serious and it doesn't need to be. Like we can have a good time with it too. So that's energy hygiene in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. You made me think there too. I think just you, especially like the generational thing you mentioned. It's like people usually will, talk about how much has changed and how fast things have changed, and they'll also talk about how stressful change is. And then they kind of give the generation, it's like, yeah, they've been experiencing faster, more exotic, new change faster. of course, it just causes a different level of stress that was not available and not around to so many. But
Yeah, the stress levels that we experience now are insane compared to what our ancestors have gone through. And they went through different stress too,
sure,
right?
for
Not to
sure.
say that our stress is, it's, we just have a different type of stress. And we have a more manufactured type of stress by the society that we live in. We
Yeah,
have corporate conglomerates that are doing everything they can to keep us all distracted, numb, and in a stress response so that we don't wake up to this stuff. So
yeah,
there's that they weren't necessarily battling in the 1700s, but they were literally battling in the
yeah,
1700s. So like,
yeah,
which one do you want?
exactly. And I know you want to, and I want you to talk about them. I have some questions about them because one of the things I know I've been doing too is just, auditory uh, things. And I know you do some sound bowls, and so you
Yeah.
smile as I bring it up. I love it.
Yeah.
So tell us about your sound bowls. I like to listen to different ones. I've never got a Sheena Jean performance. I know some friends that have, and they said it's amazing. But tell us about what that does and some of the benefits it can have for people.
Yeah. So staying on the same train of the idea that we're all energy, right? And that we are all made up of particles and waves that are like going back and forth in between all the time. Sound is a very powerful modality to shift frequency and vibration. And when we do a sound bath, no, you don't get wet. It's a very valid question. It's confusing terminology. I actually like to call it sound journey is what I do because I pair guided visualization with the sound bowls so that there is two experiences happening at once. And it's actually a cognitive experience and a somatic experience. So like I was just talking about a way to bring these both into one. So the somatic experience that you're having, what's happening to your body is that first and foremost, your brain waves are going to go into a lowered state. Most of us operate at a beta brainwave length, which is full scale wake up and like we're just in go mode all day long until we crash. And then we go through the other brainwave states to go to sleep. And then we wake up and we go straight back to beta. There's alpha underneath beta. And then there's theta, which is when your body's asleep, but your mind's awake. And that's the gateway to your subconscious. So you can do some really cool shit. Theta land is what I call it.
Yeah.
And this is a great place if you're visualizing, what's coming up in Q3 or how you want to perform in this upcoming game or what you'd like your life after sports to look like. There's so many different things that we can use visualization for to give the body an experience that it hasn't yet had. And that's going to reduce your stress hormones. It's going to train the reticular activating system. So there's this multi faceted experience that someone's having when they're on one of my sound journeys. It's the equivalent of like 45 minutes of your body resting in this state is the physiological equivalent of 4 to 5 hours of rest. So it's incredible for recovery and you wake up feeling like $1,000,000. And what's happening is the the sound waves from the crystal singing bowls are actually going through your body and pushing out different lower frequencies and vibrations and bringing you into more resonance with the higher vibrations. Higher vibrations typically win. Um, in a competition for like most people get pulled into it unless we have really shitty energy hygiene, then we can be really susceptible to being pulled into other people's bad vibes. It's like which the ones that are amplified the most are going to win. So that's why in a sound bath you're getting these big waves of amplified sound that are moving through. And I literally call it an energetic massage because that's what's
Yeah.
happening. You're flushing toxins, you're flushing emotions, all sort of stuff out of your system. It's important to stay hydrated before and afterwards. And it's like therapy for your energetic body that you don't have to talk about. It's winning,
Yeah.
in my opinion. In
Yeah.
my opinion. So
No, and I think there's dealing with a lot of athletes and some, just eh, meditation's new. They haven't experienced it. It's you brought it up for, woo woo. It's interesting.
yeah,
Sometimes the way that term gets presented to me around athletes and coaches is until I believed in it, I thought it was woo woo. That's
yeah,
how usually
yeah.
it's like, and then, it's until I saw a bit of, saw how it worked. I thought it was this woo woo stuff. And so, it's funny you brought that up, but, that woo woo stuff, gets people to believe. I think, it gets a weird label because I think just, there's a lack of understanding. Um,
There's a lack of understanding, and we were literally brainwashed to think that things are woo-woo. I mean, I can
right,
go down a whole rabbit hole on
yeah,
that
yeah,
if you
definitely.
want to talk about what Big Pharma and the Western Medical Society has done for us to really think about energy as woo-woo, because they
Yeah,
knew that if we were to be able to heal ourselves, we don't need their medicine. We
yeah,
don't need their healthcare system if
yeah,
we really understand the innate intelligence of the body and our ability to heal ourselves. So we've
yeah,
actually been brainwashed as a society to think that a lot of this stuff is woo-woo when it's not.
yeah,
And it's dope that science and research is catching up to it now, because now we've got all the proof that we
yeah,
need, and the proof is really in the results. And that's what I tell people. It's like,
yeah,
okay, don't believe that the sound journey is going to work for you. There is some nocebo effect going into play there that you won't have as great of an experience if you're not open to it.
sure,
And it's just it's frequency.
yeah,
So you will have an experience with it. So lay down, do this sound journey, and then tell me how you feel afterwards. It's
yeah.
always, the results are going to speak for themselves.
And so I think I was trying to say with the athletes too is that if they're not, if meditation and mantra isn't something, it's like definitely something to try because it's just like you just have to listen, relax, and yeah, there's really not a lot of not too much work you have to do or focus,
Well, you're so right, Tyler, because I mean, a lot of people, when we sit down for meditation, the mind is going to do some wild shit. And the ego knows it's coming for you and is going to be like, you don't know what you're doing. Don't do this. Then you've got so much other stuff to do. You suck at this. And it's like all of this, and it is meditation. Getting into a meditation practice sucks just as much as burpees do. But we know burpees are good for us. And so we do burpees, right?
Right, sure.
So think of meditation like your burpees and recognize the impact that it
Yeah.
has. And sound journeys are a much easier way to access that same brainwave state. And what I love is doing it with teams is a complete game changer. When you
Yeah.
put a group of people down and you are literally tuning their nervous systems to the same frequency and having them visualize on a subconscious level at the same time, I mean, stop it. Who's ready for a
For sure.
championship?
I
That's
mean,
all I want to
if
say.
if Sheena and I were geographically closer, I would be bringing her into my teams for sure. Make sure they got a little,
I mean, I'll
especially
come. I'm always down for a trip to Colorado.
for sure. We'll make this happen. I got a couple of coaches that would be down, I think. So, um, we talked about your goals. The other thing I wanted to ask and just get to hear from you is make one day happen.
Mm.
Tell me a little genesis of why that became part of your business and what you do and why it seems to resonate.
Yeah. This is a great question. I, people just talk about one day a lot.
Mm.
And it's like, oh yeah, one day I'll start meditating. One day we tend to put some of our biggest dreams and goals like off on the back burner. And trick ourselves into thinking that we don't have enough experience or we don't have enough time or money or whatever, insert limiting belief here into going after what we really truly desire and like the visions that have been placed on our hearts. And so that's a bit of the energy that it came from. And I've got a story of a friend that actually was a big part of when I moved to Vail in 2013. I was doing a lot of vision and goal coaching and workshops at the time. And this friend would come to all of the vision and goals workshops. He had just moved from Boston and had quit his life on the East Coast to come pursue the dream of living in Vail and being a
Yeah.
successful ski bum and living that mountain lifestyle. And so we did some 14ers together. He actually ended up passing in a tragic mountain incident. And it was, yeah, it was a crazy scenario to have him lose his life in that way. It really shook our community and me personally in just a way I never saw coming. And at the end of the day, I also he's here, he's hanging out. He's like, fuck yeah, I made the podcast. Hey Jared. I also know that Jared went out like literally living his one day life. And
Yeah.
he decided to like go all in on himself. And he he died doing something that he loved and pursuing a goal and a life that he was really proud of. And it's a nod to him. It's a reminder that um, life is short. Don't keep telling yourself one day. Like, get in fucking action. If it's that thing that you really want for yourself, like, do it. Like,
Yeah.
start to prioritize that. Prioritize like yourself and your purpose, so that you can align to what it is that you're hearing that call on your heart for. There's also a quote in the Bible. Never thought I'd be quoting the Bible.
Didn't
And
expect that one from Sheena today.
I
Didn't have
know.
that one on my bingo card today.
Oh, but it's so good because it's this idea that um, whether it's God, universe, source, whatever you want to call this higher power, right? For that higher power, one day is 1,000 years, as 1,000 years is one day. And I just fucking love that idea
Yeah.
that we could, it's like that, the blink of an eye, literally everything can change for the better, for the worse. We just don't know. And so to delay our dreams is just like the biggest disservice and waste of your fucking life, to be honest. Like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, please don't put your dreams
Yeah.
off for
Yeah.
one day. Like, make one day happen now.
For
That's
sure.
it's there, it's available for you. And so I started out teaching vision and goals and coaching vision and goals and teaching people about visualization. I've been doing that for over a decade. And then I woke up in the middle of my 10-year vision that I had made for myself, literally almost to a T, and realized that I hated my life. And I was like, oh shit, what do I do now? This is the 10-year vision I've been working towards.
Yeah.
I realized that there were some things in my subconscious that were really keeping me, from understanding what it is that I truly desired and wanted in the world, and were keeping me in some looping patterns that were creating this tension in my marriage, tension in my job life, tension in just everywhere, and was the underlying factor. So that's when I really got into thought reprogramming and really taking radical responsibility for my headspace and understanding, like, okay, what are the thoughts that are keeping me from either A, being able to really be in love with this life that I've created, or B, being able to access the life that I'd actually like to create. And then once I got my thought reprogramming down and dialed, I learned about energy hygiene and realized you could do all the mindset work in the
Yeah.
world, but there's still some shit in your body that you have to start getting
Yeah.
rid of.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those patterns are going to continue to loop. And yeah, recognize that I could be aligned for a cause, building a business in a community that I loved. And if I'm not actually taking care of my energy properly, I was going to burn out. I did burn out. So I
Yeah.
hit functional burnout and had to close a business in a community back in 2022. It was devastating, like one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever had to do, and don't wish that for anybody. So now a big part of what I do is teaching people how to avoid that burnout by using these principles so that they can make their one day happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Um, and part of that, I know that you do a great amount of work around too, and helping others move towards that one day is the intentions.
Yeah.
See, again, you smile when I say intentions. I like it.
Love intention.
But so I know, and I wanted to bring it up because I think, going back to our woo-woo comment, last spring I had the sports psychologist for Georgia football and Alabama football on the podcast at different times. And it was during spring football. And I asked him, what are you working with? Two of the best programs in the country, elite athletes, guys going to the NFL left and right. What are you working with on them this spring? And they're like, on a daily basis, we want them to set a 90-minute intention for practice. That's what we're working on them doing.
Fuck yes.
And it was just, and then they went into, why. And so I think, I tell that to coaches and they're just like, oh, an intention. They think it's like, yeah, but it creates a lot more than just the intention. It creates an opportunity for follow through, for reflection, for check-in, and a lot of different things that as a coach you want.
Yes.
and, versus a kids too, it's like, well, I hope I get better today. It's like, better at what are we gonna, like,
Yeah.
we can't just go through life and be like, I hope improves today. Like, and we can, but we'll probably feel a little bit more direction if we have an intention. And so can you talk
Exactly.
to us about some Sheena Jean intentions?
Yeah, intentions are really important, and because they're directing the energy, right? Like, that is like, if we have these channels and flows of energy going through us, like, the intention is pointing the arrow in the direction that we actually want to go. And it's the command to the cells that are listening on what we want to happen. It's telling our reticular activating system, like, hey, this is what we are looking for and hoping to achieve in this experience. And it really is setting the state of being. There's a really great TED talk by this guy, Ted Plantenberger, I think is his name, on the anatomy of results. And he works with a ton of high performers, athletes, executives, musicians, right? Like across all industries. And he talks about how there's three parts of intention, or three parts of results: intention, state, and action.
Mm.
And so often we think that action is like where we need to be focused, when actually the biggest, most important chunk is the state of being. And the state of being is reflective of the energy. And George Mumford, Kobe and MJ's mindfulness coach, he talks about this a lot, right? Like to be able to get into that zone and like find that flow, like we have to slow down to be able to actually speed up. So when we take ourselves out and set an intention, because the intention is going to magnify and amplify the energy and the state of being. So that's why we start with intention, right? Like just like we did on this podcast, like you are doing a great job of listening. and my word that I heard was expansive. So we'll see. I feel like I'm expanding in this, and I hope that there's some expansiveness happening for anyone who's listening, and they're being able to take away something that expands their energy and way of being and expressing in the world. And it's so simple. I think that's the thing that people sleep on the most, is like intention setting is so easy, and it gets brushed off like it's woo woo, or it's a waste of time. It's like, it's literally the command center for your whole being. It's not woo woo. It is going to directly impact how you're moving through a specific part of your day. And so the more intention setting, the better. I teach people how to intention set for their year, whether it's just a call that we're about to drop into the same space and having a coaching conversation, whether it's a workshop or a sound journey. The more intention that we can bring, it really gives us access to the present moment. Like that's what intention setting does. It's like, it allows us, it creates this barometer, and it's like, that's how we discern alignment. Like, are you in alignment with listening right now or not? Like, right? Like you have this thing now that you get to check in with. Am I being expansive right now? Right? Like we get these, if we declare something that we're choosing to be for the next half hour, 90 minutes, whatever it is, then we have something to measure ourselves by, versus just going out there and be like, well, I hope we have a good practice today. Like, no, I am focused. Like my intention today is explosiveness. Watch how your practice changes when you bring the intention of explosiveness to your energy. It's going to shift everything.
I think I get coaches a lot though. They're like, well, they're a teenager, and what if they can't think of one? I go, that's great. My teams always have a default one. If you can't think of one, default is be a great teammate today. Be great to others. And and sometimes like, can we just do that? Just, if we can't think of something, again, be expansive that way.
Well, and exactly. And that's where I tend to like take people through that breathe and ground exercise, to also teach them how to tune into their own intuition and innate intelligence. You will have a word pop up. If you do that, if you go back to if you were like, I don't know what's going on right now, and skipped past that first part, go back and listen for a word. You're going to get something. And that's also a way to start to learn how to trust yourself and listen to that inner whisper. The inner whispers are so freaking important. I talk about this on my podcast with Ricky Williams. And when he was leaving the NFL, everybody thought he was batshit crazy for that. What are you doing, Ricky? Like, you're going to quit at the height of your career to go smoke pot? It's like, no, this man had inner whispers that he was learning to listen to. And he knew that his calling in life was actually not to be a football player, despite what everybody else thought was best for him. Right. And best decision of his life. Best decision. Have you seen his weed company?
Yeah, I have seen the marketing. Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. Heisman, get yours. Get
He's
yours,
the only Heisman. He's doing fine.
Incredible.
He's doing fine.
It's incredible. And the whole theme of that that episode is really learning how to listen to your inner whispers, even
Mm.
when we've got so much noise around us. And that's again going back to the idea of society has really set us up to be distracted, numb, looking for answers everywhere else.
Yeah.
Looking to our coach for the answer, looking to our teammate for what's next, when it's like actually the greatest athletes of all time have learned how to quiet the mind and like listen for that inner whisper and move
Yeah.
and be guided from that place. And so the more that we can bring that into athletics and teach athletes how to do that at a younger age, we're going to get elevated performance. We're plugging them back into themselves. You're going to be able to move with more confidence, with just a greater discernment, clarity, and like, oh man, sometimes I want to like go back in time and be like, take all my tools that I have now and go back to like high school, Sheena, and be like,
100%.
okay, chick, let me sit you down and try and teach you something.
Yeah. Well, that does, it's a good segue. It leads us to one of the questions we do like to ask here as we kind of wind down too. If you got in that time machine and you had that bag of tools, and you saw teenage Sheena, what tools would you want to remind her to go find in the world or tell yourself?
I remember convincing my dad to like buy these VHS tapes because yes, that's what we were rocking when I was in high
So,
school. Um, to buy these VHS tapes about stretching.
mm,
And it's really interesting that like there was um that interest for me back then. And I think like yoga is such an easy route to get into all of the things that I'm talking about right
yeah,
now. So it's going to integrate your mind, your body, and your spirit. You're going to be able to practice mindfulness. And I think that yoga is actually a really much more accessible way for most athletes who are connected to their body and gives you a whole new level of mind body awareness that is just through the roof. It's also going to give you the ability to learn how to better use your breath. You're going to have some moments in stillness where you get to learn how to tap in through meditation. And so I would probably go back and tell myself, like, start yoga now, like keep stretching, do
do
yoga,
some yoga.
and go find a crystal singing bowl. Cause that was definitely not a thing 20 years ago. So, I mean, it was just not in Oak
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
Actually, maybe Oak Park did have someone doing some singing bowl somewhere. Oak Park's always been a little kooky and woo-woo like that.
it's probably some old lady that's got some. She's probably
Yeah.
jamming, and, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and one other thing before we wind down, because I was grateful we could finally make this happen. And I think one of the other things, another episode you'd enjoy is UMass's sports psychologist. She focuses a lot on gratitude and with athletes. And so gratitude, I know you do a lot of things with that. One of the things I wanted you to talk about that I noticed on your website was the benefit triangle. Can you
Mm.
talk a little bit about the power of gratitude, as I'm grateful to have you and your wisdom shared today, and about the power of it, and then explain this benefit triangle to those listening?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I have a workshop that I do on the neuroscience of gratitude and really helping people understand, gratitude is also way easier than a meditation practice. So start with
Okay.
a
Yeah.
gratitude
Yeah.
practice
For sure.
all day long. And there's so much research now about gratitude and its impacts. Like it was overwhelming is what I was finding. I was like, man, I am 3 hours into gratitude research and there's like so much. How do I even begin to tell people about all of the amazing things that we now understand about gratitude? And what I noticed is that I was actually all falling into like three different categories. I was like, oh, okay, so there's mental benefits for it, and there's pro-social circuits that it lights up, and there's different types of neurochemicals that it fires into. Like there's a whole lot of mental benefits. There's physical benefits too. Like because of all those neurochemicals that are going around, your body's responding differently. It goes back to that idea of the cells in the body are always listening. So when we're expressing gratitude, especially for our body, it will respond differently. And so we have physical benefits to it, and then we've got social benefits to it. Like we literally behave kinder. We are more kind to each other as a species when we practice gratitude, which is
Yeah.
really important in this day and age. And sports is, I really love something that Laura said, the idea of the unity that sports brings us under.
Mm.
Like, it's so beautiful how sports can really unite people that would never come together unless it was for the same team. And now
Yeah.
we're gonna be divisive against the other team. So I guess there is still some division in that.
Yeah.
And there's also a camaraderie that it brings. And there's just so many different buckets that gratitude hits on, and it's so simple to practice. Another way that like I really talk about gratitude is through the lens of, I teach people how to run thought defense, because your mind is always going to be running game on you. That's what it
Yeah.
does. Like,
Yeah.
the brain is literally designed to protect you. So it's going to be running these shitty little thoughts that are going to be in the form of limiting beliefs or self-doubt, different things, right? Different programming. That we all have programming. Like, you don't escape that. If you're
Yeah.
human, you've got some subconscious programming that's probably holding you back a little bit. And so we can actually learn how to identify that. And gratitude is, I liken gratitude to a zone defense. And it's just going to cover the majority of the court in the way that you need it to. And it's going to be pretty hard to penetrate if it's effectively being run. You're going to
Right.
have a better mental state if you're regularly practicing gratitude. For a one-to-one defense, I talk about anti-thoughts and how we can get actually really specific. Like, once we identify limiting beliefs and old thoughts that need to be reprogrammed, I work with people to create not an affirmation or a mantra. It's very similar to those, but we create custom ones because it needs to go in direct opposition, and you have to put in reps with it, right? You have to like actually 60 times a day say this little thing, or use a subliminal reprogramming track to actually like create a new neural pathway, so that when you're triggered in a situation, you've got a new route to go with your anti-thought. So that's what I say for man-to-man. But zone defense, gratitude is so perfect. It's so perfect for just giving you a base layer against your negativity bias. We all, again, going back to like the function of the brain is to protect us. And so the negativity bias is really strong, and we're always scanning the room for things that could hurt us or like that we don't like.
Yeah.
Like, that's how the brain is naturally wired. And so gratitude really fights against that negativity bias and gives you that home court advantage that you like just literally you can't have without it. And that's why it's one of the first things that I'll intention setting, meditation, gratitude, like those are some key elements of energy hygiene that I work with people to get into a regular practice with, because it just gives you such an advantage.
Well, Sheena, your energy was expansive and definitely had a ripple effect, because I know I expanded my thinking, and I'm sure people listened, they did too. And so I really appreciate you coming on. And you want to tell people, we'll link up all your stuff here, but you want to tell people simply where, if they can find you, where's the best place to go?
Yeah. I'm an elder millennial, so IG is really where I hang out on Instagram. At Make One Day Happen is my profile there. I've got a podcast called Make One Day Happen. You can search that on any platform, find and listen, tap in. My name's Sheena, looks like Shenna. It's a whole thing. So yeah, you can find my personal IG too, at Sheena Jean. And I've got a book and an app that's on the way that's really going to break down the principles of energy
Yeah.
hygiene, thought defense, and elevated leadership.
Mm.
So I'm excited for 2024 and just really amplifying this methodology and getting into the hands of as many people as possible to create that ripple effect. So if you're about that ripple effect life, hit me up. I want to hear what your biggest takeaway from this was and how I can cheer you on in it.